Hey, ¿qué pasa, Calexico? Welcome back to the podcast. Like always, before we begin, I want to thank a couple of people. I want to thank my anchor sponsors, my friends Camilo, Sergio, Jake. Thank you guys for sponsoring the podcast. Also want to thank Dylan from Castillo Bookkeeping. And if you're in need of any bookkeeping services, make sure you contact them at 760-960-7601 or via email acas1025@yahoo.com. Also want to thank my new sponsors, Dents on Border. If you have a small dent on your car, make sure you contact Dents on Border. I'll leave the link to their Facebook page. Also want to thank my friends at Sergio's Tacos and Hotdogs with over 8 years of experience servicing the Imperial Valley, San Diego, and Yuma counties with Mexicali style hot dogs and taquizas. Make sure you contact them at 760-562-0057 or on Facebook under Sergio's Tacos and Hotdogs. Finally, I want to thank David Asilum. If you're thinking of buying or selling a home in the Imperial or San Diego counties, make sure you contact David Asilum. He's not only a realtor, but an investor with over 20 years of experience, and he'll help you along the way in one of the most important investments of your life. His phone number is 760-235-9576. And like I've been doing these last couple of episodes, I've been shouting out a local business. We're in this situation where local businesses are struggling, and we need to help them as much as we can. Today, I want to shout out my friends at the Original Town Pub, some of the best steaks in the Imperial Valley. They're located at 200 West Main Street in Westmoreland. They're offering outdoor dining, also takeout, so make sure to visit their Facebook page or website or find them on deliver.com. Today's episode, I have a father, husband, teacher, and now a fellow podcaster. My guest today is the host of EDU with You, Mr. Michael Anthony Garcia. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me, Jose.
So since you're a first timer on the podcast, usually like to have my guests tell me a little bit about themselves. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Definitely. So my mother moved my two sisters and I to the Valley in second grade. I remember it was during October. It was like a week away from the Halloween carnival over at Washington Elementary in El Centro. I got from where we moved into the area in El Centro. I was part of the tri-school district. So I went to Washington for second grade. And then after that, I went to De Anza for third and fourth in El Centro, and then fifth and sixth in Desert Gardens. I was actually there when Desert Gardens named their mascot, the Sneakers. So fun fact, at De Anza, their mascot's the Sneakers, and they have a annual marathon that they run during the PE in the elementary, and it's kind of their staple. So I went there for fifth and sixth grade. So for fifth grade, our PE time, we would run laps, and we had to get these popsicle sticks. Every time we ran around the track, and our teacher would stand out there with popsicle sticks, and by the time the period was done, or the PE period, we would come back, show how many sticks we got, and then they would calculate that until we ran an actual marathon. So I was very motivated by something my teacher said during the introduction to this. And he said, if you go hard and you get more than a marathon, you'll earn an A+ in PE. So I was very into athletics, very competitive, and I definitely wanted that A+. So I ended up running two marathons that school year. I made it into the yearbook. And then they had the audacity to not give me an A+ on my report card.
What?
So I went back to the teacher and I politely asked him, I definitely wanted that A+. And so that was my time at Desert Gardens. Went on to Wilson Junior High, then on to Central Union High School, class of 2004. I played sports there. I was in ASB. Went back to college in my early 20s. I wanted to be in marketing and design. I was kind of doing my own clothing company with one of my best friends at the time. It caught on for a little bit. We had some momentum, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work designing, production, sales, delivering, and then the whole cycle. And then once it gets going, it just becomes this chaos of things happening all at once. And it was a lot of fun, but definitely learned a lot. And by this time, I'm going to school with the intention of entering business of some sort, whether it be in marketing for a company, or whether it be, you know, in a local firm, or somewhere in between, maybe even just independent work. So I go off, I work on my degree. I'm working at the Marriott's in El Centro at this time, and I was working in sales, and I started to learn a lot more about business. I started to practice business more, go to sales, cold calls, going to mixers, met a lot of people, and I really enjoyed hospitality. I really enjoyed hospitality so much that I was considering graduate school in hospitality. I knew I would have to relocate for more opportunities. That was a big decision for my family and I. So that was kind of on the back burner. But during this process, I kind of realized that maybe teaching might be something I wanted to go into. And I ended up going into my credential and becoming a fourth grade teacher. And I have been in the field for 6 years now. I taught 2 years of fourth grade. I taught 3 years of STEM, and I'm in my first year as a credentialed CTE business and finance teacher. And I teach seventh grade at McCabe Elementary School District.
Was there any like background of educators in your family, or you're the first educator?
You know what? I have an aunt in Texas who is an educator. But other than that, no history of educators, no.
Okay. So it was just something that you decided kind of like in the moment, or you know, in your journey through adulthood, that you're like, you know what, I'm going to become an educator.
Actually, while I was working at the hotels, I kind of stumbled upon the skill that I had to teach. So I kind of, by accident, stumbled upon this skill that I was actually teaching people. So I was in sales. And in sales, you're not dealing with day-to-day operations, which means you're not taking reservations. You're not checking people in. You're not checking people out. You're not dealing with questions at the front desk. You know, we're behind the scenes. But I always found myself with new hires teaching them the computer system. And I was teaching them. And first of all, I enjoyed it. Second of all, I was getting good at it. And with every new hire, I was learning a new method to bring on. You know, find the mistake here. You know, we would definitely start with the basics, but, you know, this is how you take a reservation. This is how they might ask you to do this. And I started chunking information, you know, asking in different ways, setting examples, doing mock, you know, reservations, troubleshooting, you know, looking to the, you know, inferring what's going to happen in the future. So when that started happening, I started to realize, okay, I really like this. This is fun. I'm building relationships with the people I'm training, and what does this mean? And as I started to dig a little bit deeper into what that meant, what, you know, teaching became a option that made sense to me. And I've always been involved in sports and coaching, and I actually officiate. So I'm part of the football association here in the Valley. We ref all the local youth games and high school games. So I've been involved. I have a lot of patience, and working with children didn't scare me at all. And so that's kind of how teaching came about. It wasn't in my family. It wasn't something that someone was kind of putting in my head. It was kind of something I realized, hey, I can do this. I would be comfortable. And now what's next? And that's kind of how I got into education.
Oh, that's cool. You say you started as a fourth grade teacher, and now you're teaching middle school?
Yep, seventh grade.
Which do you prefer, teaching elementary or junior high?
That's a fun question. I get asked that a lot, and I defend both of my classes. It's not a comparison. Fourth grade, they're so developmentally different at that age. There's so many different challenges. There's so many different rewards. There's so many different feelings in a fourth grade class. You're still an instructor. Now, you are in seventh grade also, but when I entered seventh grade, I went into STEM. And when you go into STEM, you're more of a facilitator. You're kind of helping students discover their learning, at least in theory. So apples to oranges, really. I have learned to appreciate both grade levels. I've learned to appreciate the age of seventh graders, and I finally figured that out. That was tough. My first few years with seventh graders was challenging. I remember I got made fun of my first day on the job by a junior high kid, and it hit me hard. I came from sales, so I was wearing a shirt and tie to work at the hotel every day, shirt and tie, but the whole nine. And so when I came as an instructional aide on my first day at McCabe, the junior high kids were making fun of me because I looked like the principal. But I was walking around with a radio and a whistle as an aide. And anyways, it took me a while to get used to the junior high kids, see what makes them tick. They just want to be validated as people. They just want to be validated. They want their opinions heard. They want you to know that what they don't like is real. They're not making it up. If you're talking in a type of way and they don't like it, it's real. They mean it, So at that point, I started to think of it from their perspective a little more. And it's been fun, so fun to reach my class in a different way. But going back to fourth grade, it was just a whole nother challenge, a whole nother, they're both fun. Fourth grade was an awesome experience. I really missed the elementary class, but I would not leave my seventh grade class.
Because elementary is, to me, it should be a little bit harder because you're prepping for multiple subjects instead of just one at a junior high level. So, it's, a lot of teachers, because I'm not an educator, but I work in education. I'm a computer technician for the district here in Calexico. And I've been working the district for 20 years. So and I was working in junior high first and then to high school now. And then there was a time when I remember when I was 18, this is so crazy now that I think about it. When I was 18, I used to drive a van full of elementary kids. And because I used to work for the after school program. So some of the kids that stayed after school, the bus would leave. So they didn't have a ride home. So my job was to at 5:30 go pick up these kids and then drop them off at, wherever the bus would drop them off. So it was little kids. I had first graders in this van and I was 18. So yeah, I've kind of dealt with, all ages and kind of talked to teachers from, all grades. So yeah, a lot of teachers that move from elementary to junior high or high school are a little bit more happy because, like I said, they don't have to prep for all these multiple subjects and they just focus on one. And then they give them 2 or 3 different subjects, say it's English 12 and 10, and then an AP class, and they're struggling, and when before they would prep for 5 subjects. So it's kind of weird that they get used to just that one subject. So the class that you're teaching now, what's it called?
My class formally is called Project-Based Learning Business Foundations. So my class was previously STEM. I have 170-ish 7th graders that I see daily. And in order to transition from 4th grade to 7th grade into the STEM class I was in, I had to be, per the state, I had to be credentialed in science or math as 2 options of how to teach that class, how to be credentialed for that class. So I decided to take the CSET in science, and I failed it. So I started to reassess the test and the class and how they went together. And then I started to think about what my background was the test didn't make sense to me for that class. And I brought this to my administration. We worked together. We started to research, and we started to research CTE, and we started to research my background, my undergrad, and my experience in the field. And through that research, we actually found that I'm actually clear for a CTE credential now. I had to go through a course. I completed that, and it's a lot of fun. I'm so excited to teach something I'm passionate about. I'm so excited to offer this to the students. So what my class will look like now will be, we're going to integrate, we're still going to have STEM. So for STEM, we actually adopted Project Lead the Way, which is a STEM curriculum. It's project-based. We'll be designing 3-dimensional. We'll be using a 3D printer. And in addition to that, we'll be learning personal finance in the school year through another curriculum that we brought in. And then I want to integrate a business planned project, which will take some planning. I have some ideas that I know that the administration and I will discuss on reformatting that class and just continue to not so much reformat, but continue to build up. But they've been very supportive of it. They're very excited, and I am too, and very appreciative of their support throughout the process. But that's kind of how I got to where the class is and what we're going to be doing in the future. Distance learning has put a big dent in those plans, and kind of, honestly, I've been sandbagging some of the things I want to do in hopes of meeting the kids safely later in the school year. But I think once we come back from our holiday breaks, I think that's going to provide a much clearer picture as to what needs to be, what's going to need to start being redeveloped for distance, opposed to kind of just waiting it out to see what's going to happen. So I plan on bringing some of that in and trying to make it work as best as I can through distance learning.
Yeah.
And by the way, I didn't know you were tech in education. So you, I know, have played a huge role in all of this. So thank you to our tech department at McCabe, and thank you, Jose, for what I know you're doing, because I know there's a lot of troubleshooting involved and a lot from the teachers' end. So I know your workload must be pretty hefty.
Yeah, especially since like I mentioned to you a couple weeks back that we had gone like 3,000 MacBook Airs for Calexico High School, and we finally were able to get those ready and distribute those. So yeah, that was a lot of work. And now we're dealing with students in terms of troubleshooting. Like we even help them from remotely from home and through email, and trying to get them going and settled with their device. And I mean, we can talk about education, and especially project based is something that I've been, especially during the pandemic, I was able to meet with a group of community members and teachers, and our curriculum director here at Calexico Unified School District put up this group together, and we've been talking about project based and all these different ways of learning. And we actually read a book, What a School Could Be. I don't know if you read it.
No, I haven't.
It's really interesting. But yeah, like I said, we could talk about that for hours. Maybe we could have another episode on that. But today, one of the main reasons why I wanted to get you here was to talk about your podcast, EDU with you. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got this started and maybe why?
Definitely. I wanted to work on something creatively for a long time, and trying to find that groove has been fun. I recently been messing with video and designing, and I bought a drone, so I'm flying my drone, trying to just capture moments with that and see creatively on the computer what can happen with that. And it's been a lot of fun. And through the process, I've also been thinking of, well, what can I put together? What can I do? And then that evolved into, well, what can I do with a purpose? What can I do for a reason? And then what can I do to help? And then, well, what can I do to express myself? What can I do to have my voice heard? What can I do? And not that just what can I do to express myself? What can I do to offer? What can I do to support? So the big thing, probably two big things, one being other leaders, and another being the pandemic. So with other people stepping up and doing things, and I mentioned you, Jose, because when I was introduced to you, I saw your podcast, I saw someone local doing something, and then I saw your numbers and I saw how long you've been doing this, and that was super impressive. I've always been impressed by business owners, very impressed by business owners. I have a friend who has owned Beauty Mark Salon. They've been in business for 10 plus years. Shout out to Lynn and Glady over at Beauty Mark Salon. They've had that open for years. They've just relocated to Imperial, and that like I really appreciate that. I really appreciate the hard work that goes into keeping something alive and keeping something breathing and offering good services and offering good products and then being able to, be compensated for that. Business has always been something that excites me, something I think I can do. So with this, it kind of all wrapped itself into one, and watching other people do things, whether it's you, whether it's Gil Revelar running for politics and seeing his crazy personality all the time on the internet, whether it's Andrew Revelo, stepping out of his comfort zone and being a leader in education, whether it's, Ashley Bermudez starting a Facebook page in the middle of one of the biggest needs, and she found a way to offer something, whether it's Marilyn McAllister, and these are all people I've had on my show because I look up to them for what they've done, whether it's Jenna Castillo, who's offering a very real part of her story to everybody. Those are people that have inspired me. Those are people that I see going out of their comfort zone. Those are people that I see trying to make a change. And when I say make a change, trying. I'm not gauging whether they're doing awesome or not, whether they're doing this or that. Just trying, offering, same thing with you and a lot of others. The pandemic has brought out a lot of people being resourceful, a lot of people being creative, offering their services online, offering their products, their own creativity. And that I love it. So that put the pressure on me. Like, I could do something. I can offer something. I have a voice. I have something. I don't know what that is. But the podcast just came out of nowhere. And fun fact, I don't even listen to podcasts. I don't. The closest thing would be any kind of YouTube version podcast. And that's even pretty rare. So it was really organically and authentically a form of expression. It wasn't something I was trying to model after something. I'm just having fun. I'm just having fun. I have no expectation. I have no expectation of views. I'm not over pushing my social media. I'm just trying to learn and continue to build, and hopefully at some point get to a moment where I'm offering a quality listen or a quality product or a quality experience that can help anybody.
Yeah.
So the podcast, I chose to go into education additionally because of what's been going on in the pandemic. When we left school in March of last year, the overwhelming identification of not knowing what's going to happen, it was extremely difficult to go through. And I didn't perform always as well as maybe my students deserved, but it was just an insane time to go through mentally. So as the summer hit, I was just like, okay, I need a break. But then very quickly it became, oh no, I need to get working like fast. And through Norma Gomez, who's now at ICOE, we reassembled what we had over there, which was our ed tech team. We got together, we started putting together resources for teachers. And it was through that process I realized other people were just as worried. Other people were just as frustrated. Other people were just as chaotic and unknown of what, like, I had no idea what my class would look like. How are my students going to come to me? I've never used Zoom in my life. What's going to happen? So through the process, I just started digging everywhere for resources all over the internet. Ashley Bermudez makes a Facebook page where people just start dumping resources. And then I saw teachers like struggling and going through this and just scraping the internet for anything that will help. Any kind of YouTube tutorial, any kind of free this, teachers pay teachers, all over the place. So I started to think, okay, I want to do something. I want to help. I'm in education. I have plenty of conversations about it. I talk about it all the time. Let's do this. Let's do this. No expectation, no anything. Let's just dive in. And I'm still developing. I'm doing a lot of creative guesswork with the show, and there's going to be some different types of stories coming out, different types of episodes. And I look forward to seeing what kind of impact that has. And but at the end of the day, just having fun and trying to offer something that might help someone along the way.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, when I started, it was because you're talking about being, doing something creative. When I started because I was doing YouTube with my son. We used to play video games or do unboxings or try, like, I remember towards the end of our YouTube, videos, what I'd had him do was I would buy like a generic brand of mac and cheese and like Kraft mac and cheese, and I would have him blind test it and see if he could tell which one was which. Even like generic sodas, generic chips, cookies. I mean, I was just trying to do something creative with my son, right? And once he grew up, I mean, he's only 12 now, right? But when he got to like, I think it was 10, he started like growing a lot. His voice changed. And then he heard himself. He's like, what? He's like, no, I don't want to do it anymore. So I had all this equipment, and I was like, you know what? Well, I mean, I already, bought a camera and a mic and my digital recorder. I got to use it, So I was like, you know what? I'll do a podcast. And for a while, I did a podcast with my friends. It was like a nerd podcast. We would talk about toys, video games, TV shows, movies. And then that kind of went away. And then I remember listening to Gil with Small Town News. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then when he ran for school board, he kind of like took a break. And I was like, you know what? I'll try to pick up where he left off. And that's kind of where I started. And Gil's been a huge support. Like you said, it's crazy how much he's involved in the community here in the Valley, not only in Brawley, but all over the Valley. And yeah, like he's been a huge support. When I first started, like I would, get feedback from him, and even now, like, a lot of my interviews, like he'll listen and give me pointers and whatnot. But yeah, like my biggest thing was like, just do something creative. And luckily, like, I've been doing this almost 3 years now, and, it's evolved into something, big. Like you said, like you started just to have a conversation with other teachers. And I feel that, right now, especially with the pandemic, it's a great way to share ideas, especially because I feel that you can get resources from the internet, but it's kind of like a broader information, and with the conversations you have with teachers could be more relatable to teachers here in the Valley. Because, I mean, I think I always say this when I talk to other educators or new teachers that come in. I'm like, yeah, like it's hard when you go into the classroom, because when you go to school, you're being taught like in this perfect classroom. All the kids are paying attention. All the kids are doing what you ask them to do. But once you go to the classroom, it's not that scenario. You're getting 30 different kids with different personalities. Some might have problems concentrating and problems at home. So it's totally different. So especially, kids here in the Valley compared to kids in San Diego, kids in LA, or kids, across the nation. But like, yeah, having teachers from the Valley, having conversations with teachers from the Valley, I felt like it was something really unique. And even when I talked to Andrew, when I interviewed him, I think that it's really important for our teachers here in the Valley to kind of like get to know each other, because you could share ideas, you can have a similar mentality, similar classroom that somebody else in Calexico or in Brawley, and like you don't know him, but if they're a guest on your podcast, you can be like, oh, so and so was a guest on EDU with you. I'm gonna see if I can reach out and contact. So I thought, when I first heard your idea, when you reached out to me, Miguel and Andrew, I thought it was a great idea. It was a great way to bring the Imperial Valley's teaching community together and have that conversation, share ideas and grow. Because I think something that teachers like to say all the time is that, we're all lifelong learners. Mm-hmm. And, having conversations like this is really, we learn a lot. And that's something that I also wanted to do with my podcast, learn something myself, and at the same time, maybe my listeners are going to learn something. And that's not always the case. I might have somebody that I want to promote, like your podcast, I want to promote it. So, but at the same time, I'm promoting you, but at the same time, like once they listen to your podcast, they might learn something new. So yeah, like I said, it was a great idea. And I mean, you're what, episode 5 now?
Yeah, we'll be going into episode. What was I, 4, 5? Yeah, Ashley will be 5, and then we have actually Andrew Arevalo coming in at 6.
Oh wow, that's
so that will be a good one.
Yeah. And something that I get asked a lot now it's my turn to ask it is, how do you pick your I mean, obviously it's teachers or educators, but how are you picking your guests right now?
Currently, in all transparency, I'm really going down my list of people I know. I'm really going down the people I know who are in education, who I feel have some sort of story or expertise, who can offer value. But you do not have to. I'm willing to talk to anybody on the show. Anybody who, it's a platform for us. Anybody who's in education. I thank you for having me on again, and I look forward to having you on as well. But in terms of selecting guests, I look forward to meeting new people. Like you said, at the very end of this, I just get to have cool conversations with people. I get to learn through that. I get to grow from that. I get to respect my field. I learn so much more. So at the end of the day, I'm having a great time. But in addition to that, I look forward to meeting new people. I look forward to hearing new stories. We all have such a unique story, and we all have so much to offer, whether it's in a program you're using. I just did a Minecraft EDU training the other day, or introduction, and someone has something to say. And if I'm willing to make that my point to find people, and whether it's in any district in the Valley, even if it's someone from the outside. I have an interview coming up from a person from Florida, a person I met, and I was actually introduced to him by Gil. And so I look forward to bringing that perspective to the show, and really just allowing who I am to also come out in what I'm seeking and who I'm going. But currently, while I'm still learning a lot of the tools and building my processes, I'm kind of relying on some of the people I know who are also people who are very, very passionate and good at what they do. But I'm starting to transition into new people. So Ashley Bermudez, I did not know her before asking her to be on the show. So that was a lot of fun to conduct that interview. And just starting to go from there. Anybody who's in education, supports education, interacts with education, education based. And I try to aim it at teachers, but at the same time, I think it's also at a level where teacher supporters, or whether it's moms who are really engaged with distance learning, or I think there's a lot in there that they can latch onto as well.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with distance learning, and like you said, moms are or whoever is on top of the kids when they're learning it from home. And it's funny because I was gonna ask you, like, have you had any people that you've asked that? Because when I started, I kind of like had to beg. Sometimes I had to beg people to be on the podcast. People were like, "What's a podcast? Who are you?" I had a city council member. I asked her, and she's like, "Who are you?" And she's like, "Alrighty, well, I already looked into you, and yeah, you're legit. You're okay." And I'm like, "All right, cool." Because that's something that I always try to do, is like not try to interrogate people. It's more of a conversation. And sometimes, there is, when it's something that, especially when it comes to politics, when it's something that needs to be asked, like, the elephant in the room, I'm going to try to ask it the nicest way as possible. But yeah, in the beginning, like, I kind of had to beg people, and like a lot of people are like, "What's a podcast?" And I feel like now more and more people are kind of like getting, especially here in the Valley, they're getting to know what a podcast is. And it's harder for us to listen to podcasts, because normally people listen to podcasts like on their commute or on their workout, and here, like, people really don't commute that much or that far. So you would have to listen to them like while you're working out or at home.
Definitely.
But I feel like more and more people in the Valley, and I can see it in my numbers, more people in the Valley are listening and getting to know what a podcast is. Have you had any of those instances where like people are like, "What's a podcast?" or "No, I don't want to"?
I have not had anybody say no yet. I had a skeptical, but being that I know these people, I'm kind of putting a little bit of pressure on them. But no, they've all been great and willing to share and willing to get on so far. As I reach into inviting people who maybe I don't have a history with, I do expect some no's. definitely expect some no's.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that you don't really listen to podcasts because I listen to podcasts every day.
Any recommendations?
Well, I mean, for news, there's one called The Daily, which is done by the New York Times.
Okay.
And that's one of my favorites. I listen to it every morning, Monday through Friday. And then I listen to a lot of like comedy podcasts. There's one called Tiger Belly. It's Bobby Lee and his girlfriend. And then Bobby Lee and Andrew, this redhead comedian, Andrew Santino. They have another podcast. It's called Bad Friends. What else do I listen to? And then I listen to a lot of like NPR stuff. Conan O'Brien has a podcast. Pod Save America, like, you know, stuff that, especially like political stuff, like I wouldn't recommend because I don't want to, you know, force people on, you know, but that's something that I listen to.
Now I do admit that I spend a lot of time on YouTube.
Yeah, me too.
A lot of time on YouTube.
Me too. And a lot of the podcasts are, you know, you could listen or watch on YouTube. Like the Bad Friends one, Tiger Belly. Conan doesn't have his has his on YouTube, but yeah, I listen to a lot of. It's funny because when I was a little kid, I remember my dad putting like talk radio all the time. Uh-huh. I'd be like, why are we listening to this? You know, we should be listening to music. Yep. And now, you know, it's funny that I do it. You know, like on road trips, like I'll put on like a podcast or a talk radio, and everybody's in the car like, why are you, you know, can we listen to the music? So it's funny how, you know, I've turned into, you know, my worst nightmare. But and the thing is, like, I not only do I listen to them, you know, I'm doing it, and it's funny. But yeah, it's crazy that a lot of people think podcasting is something new, and you know, I've been listening to podcasts for like 10 years now probably, and yeah, it's hopefully because there's a pod, like I always say, there's a podcast for everybody. Whether you want to listen to news, religious stuff, comedy, movie reviews, there's a podcast for everybody. And like you, I mean, your podcast is, you know, I guess we can say it's mainly focused for teachers, educators.
Yeah, we can definitely say
that. But like you said, like there's something that maybe a mom or maybe like an student that's trying to become a teacher.
Yes.
You know, they could, you know, probably listen and catch something. Do you have any plans on having students on the podcast?
You know, I've thought of ways to be creative with that, and I'm still brainstorming some ideas. I definitely want to do my research and make sure that everything is you know, set right, but I definitely want to highlight students. I definitely want to bring segments to the show that can accomplish different things. And one of them being highlighting either student work or student projects or student achievements, somewhere along those lines. I look forward to building something that I can integrate into the show that will highlight students. But I definitely am interested in seeing how it might work as maybe an after school program. To where students are creating, editing, developing formats, and I think that would be a lot of fun and something creative to offer.
Yeah, for sure. During the pandemic, I was able to, you know, I wanted to see how teachers and students were doing with the whole distance learning, and yeah, I was able to talk to a couple of teachers, coworkers of mine, and then a couple of students as well. Especially, it was kind of sad because I was able to talk to some of the seniors. So, you know, they didn't have prom, they didn't have grad night, they didn't have graduation. So yeah, I was trying to, it was a tough conversation. But what surprised me the most was how understanding they were about the situation. You know, how they knew that this was happening, and it was nobody's fault. And at the same time, the things that they weren't having, like, or missing out on, were because of safety precautions. And, you know, I was really amazed how, you know, understanding they were. Like, I would have been like crying and like mad.
I'll second that. I've been absolutely amazed with how incorrect my assumptions of how things would go with the students were. they have definitely showed up, and they are so gracious with what's going on and what we're asking, and they're trying their best. And it's just been, for me as the teacher, it's been very motivating, very inspiring to see them and have that same grace you're talking about, have that same understanding, and have that same ability to accept and move forward and do what we got to do. I've seen that in so many different areas and so many different conversations and so many different online forums. Like, they're really saying how much the students have stepped up. I think that's really cool. I think that's really cool for us to see these kids do, to be strong, resilient, and all these things that we've been promoting: grit, growth mindset. Like, as educators, that's happening. That's happening right now. Like, it's beautiful to see. It's awesome to experience, because like you said, all I have to go off of is comparing that to when I was their age. And like you said, I was a little bit more egocentric than that. And I would have definitely seen this as different. And I'm willing to admit that. And I'm willing to give these kids the credit they deserve. They have been amazing. And I tell them, as long as you show up, I will show up, and I will do my best. And, they've really kept me going. So I second that comment.
Yeah, for sure. It was, I mean, we had a lot of good conversations, especially because I was able to talk to like the ASB president, and also talk to students that had just graduated and were away from college and came back, and how their first year was kind of messed up and at university. And yeah, it's crazy, all these things that are going on during the pandemic. And at the same time, it's kind of cool that, like stuff like your podcast kind of like was born because of this pandemic, and, how we're having those conversations as well, whether it's teachers or students that are kind of like sharing their thoughts. And there's a way that the community can listen to them and kind of like feel what they're going through. And I think that's something that we kind of like need to do a lot as well, kind of like focus on mental health and not only on students' mental health, but as teachers, because, talking to a lot of my coworkers, when I'm troubleshooting their equipment remotely, like, yeah, you can tell like they're stressed, and, especially those older teachers that aren't as comfortable with technology or having a hard time, getting used to all this. And that's something that needs to be talked about. And hopefully maybe that's something that you can have somebody on and talk about.
We definitely have some plans to have someone on to discuss that topic specifically, and some of the stress that teachers deal with. And it's been tough to watch some of my colleagues, struggle. It's been tough to watch some of my colleagues of all ages, all grade levels, all experience levels. But it's also been really cool to see others teachers so willing to help, so willing to offer, so willing to FaceTime, call. Yeah. What do you need? It's been really cool to see my colleagues and fellow teachers and educators really come together. And that's been pretty inspiring too. I'm just, like you said, it's cool to see something born out of this. And I agree with that. But at the same time, it's also helped me open my eyes to the field I'm in and the special things that we do, and how much we are isolated. Not so much for any reason, just as much as it's just difficult for us to communicate. So the podcast was just an alternative method to offer. There's the Facebook group. People are on Twitter. A lot of educators on Twitter. Yeah. A lot of different forums here, there. Instagram's a big one. Mine's just one little piece, and all the options for people to go to for resources. And I just want to play that role.
So if there's any teachers that might be listening to this that might want to, reach out to you, maybe be a guest, how can they do that?
You can email. The email is eduwithu@gmail.com. That's going to be changing soon. I actually just bought my domain, so I'll be working with that and getting some new emails set up. But for the current time, it's eduwithu, where U is spelt with just the letter U, @gmail.com. I'm on Facebook at eduwithu. I'm on Instagram at eduwithu_teacher_podcast, and Twitter at eduwithu. So any one of those ways, private message, and I'm open to having anyone on who's willing to share whatever it is you want to share. My process for my guests is, like you said, about comfort and being confident. So what I do is I do a pre-interview and I get to know a person. I try to counter that hesitation that you were mentioning earlier about being on the show. And I don't do live interviews. I record them, I edit, and I offer that package. That is my product. So for me, I do a pre-interview. I get to know my guests. I share with them my mission, my goals, my expectations, which are very low. And I'm like, we're just having a conversation. Like, whatever it is you want to talk about, that's what I want to talk about. Whatever you want to share, that's what I want to ask you about. I'm not here to push back on your opinions. I'm not here to surprise you. I'm not here to get into any kind of controversial topics that this is a happy, inspirational, progressive, fun conversation. And that's what I'm offering. That's what I'm targeting. So I look forward to just trying to find my groove in that lane.
Yeah. And I think that's something that's really helped me a lot was, and kudos to you to, kind of like meet the guests first, because sometimes, they might be a little bit tentative or like holding back in terms of what they want to talk about. But yeah, something that's helped me a lot was that, people are not, I'm not trying to be my own drum, right? But, or to my own horn, but, people often when I talk to them, it's my first time meeting them. And the first time talking to them, and after we're done, like, we talked for like almost 2 hours, and like, really 2 hours? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh man, you make me feel like so comfortable, and like, I can talk and like, and that's my ultimate goal, like kind of like, make you feel comfortable, make you, especially when it's something that it's informative and helping the community. I just want you to feel free and talk and share your information and that's why kind of like I'm not really I don't really have a lot of fun talking or interviewing guests when it's political season, because it's really important. I know that it's really important for me to have them on. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I think those are the interviews where I get the most negative feedback, because like I said, like I try to be like super neutral, unbiased, and just have a conversation and like I said, I don't try to, like you said, attack them or put them on the spot. So when there's people that want me to ask certain questions that I don't feel comfortable with because I don't have, whether it's the information or it's just like hearsay, I'm not gonna ask it, because like I said, like my goal is to make my guests feel comfortable, and if in the future that person that I had the conversation with, because it's happened, said something on the podcast and didn't follow through with it. I've had, like I said, a guest that, said something and didn't follow through with it. And people are more than welcome to, share that because it happened, get that clip and share it and ask them like, why didn't you follow through? So yeah, it's really important for your guests to feel comfortable and feel free to talk and share their information. And yeah, it's cool that you have that like pre-interview.
Yeah, I mean, it does a lot for me too. It does a lot for me too to get to get to know the person and kind of ease my nerves also.
Yeah, because
I wouldn't be on the mic if it was up to me. I'm doing just like with the clothing company. I do everything. I'm doing everything now. Everything that you've seen with the EDU with you, I have done. I've made. I designed. I'm creating, manufacturing, like everything. Now I've used local vendors for the merchandise, which has been really fun and some great work. But putting that together it's a lot of work. It's a lot of individual, like I said with you with the video, it's a lot of individual pieces, and it's really become a project. And so like I said, I'm really just having fun learning different ways to design and different ways to do this and do that, and it's just been a lot of fun. I do admit though, I need to start tacking down a date, like every other week or something, because I've been very sporadic, and my numbers are. I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I've learned with talking to a lot of people through the podcast. I was able to talk to Tony Slums. I don't know if you know him. He's from Brawley. He's a music producer.
Oh wow!
I had an interview with him, and that's something that he kind of made me realize that scheduling is really important. Having every week, this day, this time, I'm gonna release an interview. That's really important for people that that are fans of your podcast, like to say like, oh, you know what, it's Thursday, so and so's podcast is on, and because it happens to me. And before the pandemic, I was really, really good at putting an episode like every Thursday this day, and then I would bank an episode and I would promote it. Like, say I record this one today, and then I would promote it for a week. Oh, next Thursday, Michael is going to be on the podcast. Make sure you check out. That's something that Tony Slums really, made me understand that, scheduling is super important, promoting. And right now, like I said, I'm not doing it because, sometimes I've been doing like 2 episodes a week, or maybe I don't have a guest, but once the pandemic's over, hopefully soon, I'll be able to get back on track where scheduling is a thing on my podcast. Because it's really, it's like when you watch a show, that so and so day, your show's on, so you're getting excited for it. You were talking about your merchandise. Can you tell a little bit about your merch and how you're using it? Because we were talking about my new toy and how we nerd out on stuff like this. But I feel that support from the community and through your merch is a good way for your podcast and for people in the community to help you out. So can you tell us a little bit about your merch?
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I'm I have currently T-shirts for sale. EDU with you logo T-shirts. I also am selling. Those are for $20. I'm selling mask face coverings, and those are for $5. They're just basic face coverings. And I'm working on getting tumblers and some more tumblers. Those sold out, and some coffee mugs. And I'm looking for some local vendors. And you brought up students earlier, Jose, and through my business class, I found that a student actually has been working on her own business with her Cricut machine. So she shared with me her Instagram page on her business. I saw all the design she's doing, and after speaking with her family, she's going to actually make and produce my coffee mugs for me.
Oh wow!
So the coffee mugs will not only be for sale, but they will have been bought from a local vendor and a student entrepreneur.
Wow, that's cool. Super cool.
Look forward to getting different merchandise. I'll be putting out on my website, hopefully about in the next month. I should have an online store with pictures of everything available, and that should be coming out on the social media. Everything is being developed right now, so it's been very slow with production of episodes, but there's a lot of background going on work, and the shop is one of them. So with the shop being online, a website coming, hopefully I can centralize everything and allow a landing spot for people to go to. And in addition to that, offer the merchandise. And like I said, the merchandise will be being sold. The money's being put back, and I'm having fun allowing that to fund the project and allow me to keep moving forward and keep enhancing the show. And so I appreciate any purchases, any support that would allow the podcast to keep creating new content.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and like I said earlier, I've been really fortunate that I've been getting more and more supporters on my podcast, more and more sponsors. And like I was talking to you, like I was able to buy a new device that once the pandemic is over will allow me to be a little bit more mobile, because I used to, before this, I used to record my shows in local businesses, just like as a way to support a little bit promotion for the business, and it gave me a place to record other than my house. So yeah, hopefully once this is all over, I'll be able to be more mobile with the new device that I was able to buy through sponsorships of my podcast. So yeah, like I said, I'm really, really thankful for them, and going back to what you're doing, it's really important for people that listen to the podcast or the community members, you know, to support, because in reality we're, you know, kind of like a small business, because, you know, we're putting work and money into this, and, you know, it's really important for people that enjoy what we do to kind of like give us a little bit back, maybe.
It is a lot of work. And actually I had a conversation with someone the other day, and they were asking about recording, and I started going over my process, and they were like, what? And I was like, well, which part drew that, that surprise? And they said, I didn't realize so much work went into it. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, the process that I developed, there's a lot of work involved. There's multiple meetings with the guest. There's marketing that I'm designing. There's write-ups that I have to do. And then there's the production and the editing. And I try to be as fast, but as attention to detail in the editing as well. And that's my creative, that's where I get to have fun when I'm editing. It's a lot of work. It's a lot to dive into, but I get to have fun with the editing. So again, just that whole process has been fun. And as it unfolds, like I said, there's so much going on in the background that I look forward to spending more time in the in front of the camera, in front of the social media, and really start to engage on social media and really start to unfold some sort of experience. And I hope that's what it goes for. I mean, I know I'm doing a lot of talking about the future plans, but it's a lot of brainstorming. It's a lot of just trying to be flexible in the moment, listen to people, and see where we can just kind of move forward. And I look forward to that. I look forward to just trial and error and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't, and having fun along the way. Yeah.
And it's, I mean, like you said, like, the time you invest in not only like the show itself, like editing, talking to guests, you know, coming up with questions, you know, all these things that go, you know, into just the show itself, like the episode. And you add, you know, social media, website, you know, all these things that are part of the podcast that people are kind of like waiting for. You know, social media is a big part of getting a podcast, you know, to grow and for people to, you know, more hits on. So like, yeah, like I feel that I should post something every day, but sometimes, you know, it's this is kind of like a hobby and not really a job. So like, it's kind of hard, like to balance, you know, everything out. And yeah, like, you know, like you're saying that, you know, all these things that are kind of like slowing down the production of episodes, but you know, there's so much in the background that you're doing to get the podcast on, you know, on the map, more people get to listen to it. Yeah. And right now, like the biggest thing, you know, editing, I've gotten it down to like this science, or like I'm really good at putting the episode up.
Okay.
But my biggest, the hardest thing I have is because I have a website as well, pasacalexico.com. I just bought the domain recently as well. Oh, shout out to my coworker Victor. He helped me out with my website. So just
how excited were you when you saw that it was available?
Yeah, I was super excited. I was like, yes. And yeah, I recently got it, and I tried to do like a blog post of my guest. And I tried to do like a kind of like lengthy wise, you know, kind of like a decent length, and trying to like put something in words. It's what I'm having the hardest time to do right now. Because like I said, like the episodes I can like boom, edit them and put them up like in 30 minutes. But the writing part is like, you know, I'll go back, come back. And I even got a book. It's called On Writing Well.
Oh, wow.
I've been reading it just to like see if I can get, you know, faster at writing decently. And yeah, that's the hardest part. And like I said, like there's so much that goes into having a podcast, you know, that, you know, sometimes like people don't see the hard work, and it's really nice talking to other podcasters, because you kind of like get to share more stories, you know, like on all these things that we're doing. But yeah, you know, I diverse, but But yeah. Is there anything else that, because we're almost at an hour, believe it or not.
Wow.
Is there anything else that you would like to add that I didn't ask or talk about?
No, not so much. I just any teachers out there, we see you, we hear you. Thank you for everything you do, for showing up every day, being in that Zoom, sitting in that chair all morning, planning those lessons, helping those students that need those one-on-one, doing the breakout rooms, planning in Google, going back to Clever, to the young teachers in terms of the grade levels, to the kindergartners for good, that's incredible work we're doing. Incredible work you're doing. All the way up to the high school teachers, that are teaching high school level content online. Just thank you. It's a very tough job right now, with I think some misunderstandings sometimes. And our show wants you to know that we're appreciative, and thank you. And thank you to all the students, and thank you to all the parents who are supporting your children, who are just amazing online. So I think that's the biggest message from the show, is just appreciation and thank you and gratitude. And thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak. I've been looking at like different, promoting and one of the biggest things was being on people's show. And I have to admit that I was like, you know what? I need some more followers. I need some more clout before I hit up Jose. I need something to bring to the table. And when I get there, I'm going to hit him up and see if, so for you to reach out to me was I very much appreciate it. It was a surprise. Not so much, because of anything you said or done, but, my just waiting for the right timing, I guess, which I guess is a little silly in itself, but I do appreciate it. So
yeah, I got the same reply, the same kind of answer from Jesse Ruiz in regards to myself podcast. But I get excited when I see new podcasts, especially from the Valley. And I try to reach out to anybody that's starting a new podcast. I have somebody else in mind that I want to talk to that recently started a podcast as well. Because to me, it's, the more the merrier, the more people that in the Valley that are, your followers might, listen to this episode and start listening to my podcast. And it's not only because I want more listeners, but it's because of the information I put out there. Might be somebody that I interview that might inspire somebody to do something new or help somebody out. And, at the end of the day, that's like the goal, to put out good information, good stories, and just, inform the community of the cool things that are happening in our community. And, we're going through some hard times. A lot of us are at home, and maybe listening to a podcast might, kind of like make your day go by a little bit faster or help you do something or reach out to somebody new, because I've talked to a lot of different people, and that's why it's kind of hard to pinpoint what my show is about, because I've talked to so many people of different jobs or subjects that's kind of hard to pinpoint. But I feel that there might be somebody that I talk to that might inspire you to do something and, get you through your day. And, that's the end goal, to help people learn, teach people, learn something, inspire people. And, you're doing it with your podcast, talking to other teachers, maybe inspire new teachers, and maybe inspire somebody that's thinking of going into education. And especially during these times, it might be kind of hard to say like, oh, I want to be a teacher, because, we're in a pandemic, we're doing everything through distance learning, but, there's, this is not the normal, this is something that we're going through right now, but there's a lot of cool things that, especially when it comes to like project-based learning, like I said, we could talk about that like for hours, but, there's a lot of things that are going on in education that, might inspire people to become teachers and help out our children to, be more and maybe come back to the community and help the community. But yeah, I always do that. Like I'll talk about something and then I'll get into like all these subjects. But
well, I don't know how you feel, but as a personality, I just talk way too much. So podcasting was like, I need a podcast. I talk and talk. I could be on a conversation for hours.
You know what? I don't talk that much. Like my wife tells me that, like, it's so weird that you have a podcast because you're not much of a talker. And yeah, like I don't talk that much. But I guess when I do this, like I get in the zone, and you know, if and like I said, like if it's something that if we have a conversation and I'll go into this train of thought and I'll go. But yeah, like I'm not much of a talker. I'm always like listening to something or on my own space. And I mean, a lot of the times I'm thinking about the podcast, thinking of people I can interview, the questions I would ask. I always try to carry a little, where is it? That's right. Try to carry a little notebook, like write down guest questions and stuff like that, ideas. But yeah, I'm not much of a talker.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's super weird. Super weird. But Michael, we're over an hour now. An hour and like 6-7 minutes. So no, an hour and 5 minutes. So yeah, I want to thank you again for what you're doing. Like I said, it's really important for our teachers in the community to get to know each other. Create these networks and share ideas and thoughts, especially during these times when we can't really meet each other. But it's become easier to meet more people through like Zoom and Meet or all these other digital platforms that we've gone to learn because of the pandemic. This is learning, and I think that your podcast is a good way for other teachers to learn of other teachers in the Valley. And I hope that I have a lot of friends that are teachers, and I'm gonna send them your way. Maybe they'll be a guest on your podcast. But yeah, thank you again for taking this time to be on the podcast. I know that, being a podcaster, you could be spending this hour working on something on your podcast. But yeah, I want to thank you again. And yeah, anything else that you would like to?
No, I appreciate it again. Thank you. Thank you to your audience. And I just look forward to hopefully being able to maintain it and keep it up and offer something to anyone willing to listen.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys. Well, is that EDU with you? Yeah, for sure. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening or watching. I want to remind everybody to stay safe, wear your face mask, wash your hands, and be kind. I'm stealing this line from Ellen, but yeah, be kind to each other. Love each other. I know that there's a lot of things going on right now, but at the end of the day, we're in this together. And thank you guys once again, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.